I wanted to make a couple of points that tie into the video that you've just looked at. And they focus on the idea that people are informavores. They constantly scan the environment, picking up information with all their senses. Now you have to remember that when we talk about people being willing, that's willing to process information. We process a very tiny percentage of what we actually perceive. Most of what we even perceive or take in, we're not even conscious of. We just discard it so fast that it doesn't even come up into our conscious level. So we're scanning the environment, we're taking in information all the time. Does this work? This is what I call a mixed message. You have verbal information. By that I mean it's information coming in symbols, and you have actual sensory information, in this case visual. The sensory input outweighs verbal input. This is why you can't nail signs in trees that say, please take care of the trees, because people look at the visual input and they discard the rest. This is also why we have sayings like talk is cheap, show me. In other words, give me the visual input. I'm not interested in just the symbolic input. I'll believe it when I see it. You need to walk the talk. Okay, this is all about I want the first-hand stuff. I want the sensory input. So one of the things we do is we assess all incoming information for consistency. So you want to make sure your messages match. Now here I want to digress a minute, and this is one of the reasons I put this up here. Some of you are a little bit confused about what a message is. Topic is a subject. A point is a message about the subject. And the way you get to it is by filling in the blank. After reading, hearing, seeing this strategy, in other words, listening to a talk, reading a sign or whatever, participants will know that. And whatever you put in the blank, if you fill in the blank, it's going to be a complete sentence. And as a complete sentence, it's a provable point, and that's its value. You have to defend it. And so you have to pick the information that actually defends that point you're making. Again, that's the value of it. It's your tool for selecting information to present. This is the example I gave in one of my previous lectures when I was talking about message versus information-driven communication. Topic, Polynesian culture. Well, if you try to develop a presentation from that, the amount of information you have is unlimited. You don't know what to choose. So it's going to be from here, there, and everywhere. It's going to be a hodgepodge. It's going to overload people. They will be trying to find connections, and it will be hard to find them. Message. The Polynesians had a very advanced culture for their time. If you try to put together a presentation based on that, the amount of information is very limited. It's only the information that proves that particular point that conveys that message. Again, that matches the way we want to store information as a relationship or as a series of relationships. That's what a schema is. It's made up of a number of nodes and connectors which identify the relationship between the nodes. So just talking about messages, and again we're looking at the potential for a mixed message. Hanalei National Wildlife Refuge. We are professional, cutting-edge people who really care about the resources. Yeah, but you can't even put your science in straight. So do I really believe you? We want you to stay on the path that's important. Well, if your sign is so important, your message is so important, why don't you take care of the sign? Now this one is kind of the opposite. Take a lot of care of the sign. It looks like you really want to convey whatever message is here. So that's one of the reasons why you need to dress nicely if you're giving a presentation. It has to do with credibility, and it has to do with caring about whatever message you're giving people. This particular message, and this is a collection of signs on the Oregon coast, basically tells me I'm not welcome there. They really don't want me there. This is one of my favorites. So this is a fully accessible trail to a fully accessible viewing platform along the Oregon coast in the Fort Dune Ridge. The signs, ironically, are all about how sand shifts. Well, it did shift. It buried part of the fully accessible trail, so you had to climb over dunes to get to the platform, which was buried in about 3 feet of sand. Totally not usable, and not a particularly good message for the agency that put it in. Body language. We read body language all the time. I'm interested in your point of view. No, you're not. That's what crossed arms signal. They signal a defensive position. I'm not really interested in what you have to say. I'm not listening. So all of these constitute messages that we pick up. Some we couldn't even articulate, but they're there. Key issue, and this is, I'll give you an example that happened to me. I happen to be I wear another hat. I'm a choreographer for local plays. And I was doing cabaret, and in a dress rehearsal, I had all my dancers looking down, so I sent them this email. Dancers, be sure to look up. Now, am I yelling or just emphasizing? I come from a different generation. I was emphasizing. This is before the internet. This is before computers and things like that, that if you wanted to emphasize something, you put it in all caps. Well, they all thought I was yelling, and it was a big issue. I had no idea what was wrong until they explained it to me. Different generations interpret the same symbol differently. And in fact, we're having problems now even intragenerational. You look at kids 10 years younger than their older siblings, and they're actually, the language they're using on Twitter, internet, and things like that is actually changing. And that's one of the issues we have in communication today, that the word symbols are changing rapidly. Snafu, really, language has always changed, just not as rapidly as it is changing now. How many people actually know what snafu means? We'd all say, well, it's kind of a foul up. Yeah. This word is actually an acronym, SNAFU. It comes out of the military, and what it means is, and I'll give you 4 of the words, you can fill in the blank. Situation normal, all blanked up. And the word is not fouled. Nauseous. I used to find it pretty humorous when students would come in and tell me that they didn't attend class because they were nauseous. Well, if you look up nauseous, what it really means, or used to mean, was that people find you nauseating. What the person was really meaning was, I am nauseated, not I'm nauseous. But it has been used so often that way that it's now an accepted way of using it. The public actually determines the correct usage of words. So if they use it a certain way long enough, it'll show up in Webster's that way. What's happening now, though, with Twitter and internet and social media, is we're having to use fewer and fewer words, and we're wanting to use fewer and fewer words because it's high effort to type all of them. So we use lots. We've developed acronyms, and we use them. Laugh out loud. All concerned. This is a concern in terms of communication because these acronyms represent the way people are communicating now, or at least a significant chunk of people. They're also not necessarily capitalizing. They're not using grammar, the way that, say, I was brought up to use it. And you could sit there and say, well, that's wrong. Well, according to that particular generation, it is. But it's the public that determines how you communicate, what symbols and what they mean. So it's an interesting problem that we have in communication today. Symbols, not just words, also change. Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree used to mean forgiveness, I'm going to give you a second chance. Now it has been co-opted to mean bring the troops home safely. And it's victory, and it's a lot of things that it wasn't before, but it's been changed. Another key issue, when you go into a foreign country, this is Reagan, and he happened to visit China, and he went and bought something in a shop, and he tipped them. Now, obviously, this is an American currency, but in China, to tip somebody, at least at that time, was an insult, because basically what it meant was, I know you're cheating me, but I'll show you that it doesn't matter, so I'll just give you more money. So you cheated me out of some, it doesn't matter, I'll just give you more. That's what it meant. So different cultures interpret the same symbols differently. Just have to find out what they are. Key takeaways. We gather information from everywhere. We gather with all of our senses, and we scan continuously. Sensory input outweighs verbal input. So You really want to avoid a mixed message, and particularly when the sensory input is discrepant from your verbal input. We interpret symbols based on our background. Whether it's a symbol, sensory input, we'll even interpret situations with sensory input different from other people. I've actually got a picture of a scorpion. I should have included it. To me, a scorpion says danger. To people in Thailand, it says protein. So completely different interpretation of that visual. So one of my key points out of this is simply to avoid mixed messages. When you're going to communicate something, if you really care about it, make sure every part of the strategy says that I care. Things are aligned, things are neat, things are professional. Anything else will say, I don't really care. And so it will dilute or diminish what your message is.